I'm once again really excited to come your way with today's exciting content, particularly looking at the series I've started. This is the I conversation where I bring together three very important issues, looking at environment, looking at young people, and looking at the role of economy and how Christians are supposed to respond to emerging issues in these key areas. I'm really, really excited today to again pick this whole conversation of who is my neighbor, and particularly trying to respond to the question of self-defense. We live in a world where you find it really, really difficult to respond to questions around uh, people you call your neighbor, essentially people you share your environment with, people you sometimes hold in high esteem. But then these same people want to take your life. These same people want to harm you. These same people want to take some very terrible actions against you. And I've heard a lot of people talk about self-defense. I've heard a lot of people say, I will not allow someone kill me. I would rather defend myself. I would rather defend my family. My desire this evening is to see how best to respond biblically as followers of Jesus Christ. Is there room for self-defense? Would Christ have defended himself if he were in our own time and in our own situation? I know a lot of people have opinions out there, and I know some of the opinions they sell better, and there are certain opinions that when you put out there, a lot of people are against it simply because it does not appeal to reasoning. But then today, what I want to do is I want to particularly read from Matthew chapter 5, uh, from verse 39. And then I would share some reflections about how best to respond to our neighbors. And in this context, I've done a couple of series about who is my neighbor. I hope to keep the conversation about who is my neighbor, hopefully to wrap up this particular series next week, God's willing. But today, I want to respond to this very difficult question. If truly those around us are our neighbors, if truly even those who think of evil towards us are our neighbors, how do we respond to them? What should be the best response? And I find the teachings of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, which is essentially the chapter that captures this whole idea of the beatitude, where Jesus talks about blessed are these, blessed are that, blessed are that. But then he comes to verse 39 of Matthew chapter 5. And Jesus says, you have heard that the law, you have heard the law says the punishment must be the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. If you are sued in a court and your shirt is taken away from you, give your coat too. If a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, carry it 2 miles. Give to those who ask, and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. I, I mean, reading this text, I'm like, Jesus, you know that this is out of this world. And really, that is the essence of why I am bringing this conversation. Because again, all of this cannot take place if you don't share the same space, the same resources with someone. You will not get to have to wrestle with some very difficult, tough decisions. But then I'm bringing this whole conversation to challenge how we think, and I like the very opening of this particular passage. Jesus said, "You have heard." And I mean, the opinion out there, especially when it comes to relating to our neighbors who think evil of us, the predominant perspective out there is almost that you pay the person the same measure. So if the person kills your child, kill his child. If the person steals from you, steal from him. Exact measure. So there's this quest to sort of balance the weight of whatever wrong that is done to you. And we can think about it on very mild and simple issues, and we can think about it in very big and huge issues. Just like for in the last couple of weeks, one of the things that has been challenging us here in the middle belt of Nigeria is the fact that communities are being killed. People are killed on a daily basis. People are, then the question a lot of Christians are asking is, what do we do in this instance? Should we just fold our hands and be killed? Like, really? But then for me, I find it really interesting that Jesus mentions about four scenarios in this particular passage, but then he challenges the culture that has been existing, and the culture of you should do to those who do to you the same measure of what they did to you, do to them. But then I'm wrestling with this question, and I thought it's important to bring this up as I talk about who is my neighbor, the whole question of self-defense. How do you defend yourself in this context? Maybe it's not a live on live context we usually find ourselves. I mean, maybe it's not a mother context. Maybe it's simply a context where you're wrestling with the decision of paying back someone the same measure of what he or she has paid you. Now think about this, that Jesus begins by saying, giving the first illustration, which is, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. Like, if someone slaps me on my right cheek, now this is my right cheek. Jesus was saying that we should offer the left cheek. But then I tried to illustrate this when I was preparing for this. I had to ask my younger sister. I said, "Come stand here. Let me slap you with my," and you essentially have to use your right hand, right? Culturally, you don't use your left hand, and I think even the Jewish people value the right hand. And so that's a discussion for another day. But then, if I'm to slap you, think about it. If I'm to slap you with my right hand, and you're standing right before me, I'm to slap you with my right hand on your right cheek. Essentially, I will need to slap you with the back of my hand. It's technically impossible for me to slap you on your right cheek with my left hand. I will need to use the back of my hand. So I thought about it, and I did a little bit of a survey, and I discovered that it's culturally unacceptable for you to be slapped with the back of your hand. But then, when you give the left of your cheek after being slapped by someone who has done what is culturally not accepted, and again, agree, it is culturally unaccepted in most societies that you go into a community and you kill people. It is culturally unaccepted. I don't know of any culture that will accept that someone comes into a culture, a community, and want to wipe an entire household or whatever it is. It's culturally unaccepted. So there are things, there are norms that are culturally unaccepted. But certain people, because they are considered to be evil men, they will want to go against such cultural norms. I'm thinking about it, and I'm bringing about it an opinion here. my understanding of this reflection and how it should inform how we relate with our neighbors, how it relates with whoever we share resources with, whoever we live with, whoever that we interact with. Now, Jesus was essentially saying someone does something that is culturally not accepted. And then what should be your response? That rather than you dragging this person and saying, you have done what is culturally not accepted, Jesus said you should give your left cheek. Let's keep that on a whole. Now, when you move to the next illustration Jesus gave, he said, if someone sues you and your shirt is taken from you, he says, give your coat. Now, culturally, when you think about it, for a Jewish man, usually there is an outer cloth, it's like the suit I'm wearing, and then there is an inner cloth. Now, let's say Jesus was saying, you've done something wrong technically here, and someone takes you to the court. Or you've not done anything wrong, and someone takes you to the court. And they seize your outer, whether through justice or an unjust way, they take away your outer cloth. Jesus says you should even go ahead and offer your inner cloth. Now, keep that again for a moment. And then the next verse says, if a soldier demands that you carry his gear for a mile, he says, carry it for 2 miles. Now, think about it. A soldier, in all his might, in all his regalia, with his gun and everything, comes to you, a bloody civilian, and says, carry this thing for me. When you think about it, a soldier should be stronger, should be powerful. He does not need help from a bloody civilian. But the illustration gives here, Jesus gives here, seems to beat the cultural perception of how people should relate with one another in the society. But then we have in this particular context that such people who are placed either above you or people who are not supposed to go against certain cultural norms have gone against it. What should be your best response? Now, for me, I would summarize what Jesus calls us to do in these simple words, that in our relationship, even when someone goes against the cultural norm, when someone does something that can be considered to be evil towards you, Jesus is saying, never you take a victim position. Now, think about it from the last illustration. A soldier comes, commands you, take this thing for me, go 1 mile. And at the end of 1 mile, you tell this military guy, you know what? I'm going to go 2 miles. Now the question is, at the end of the first mile, who was in control? Or before the end of the first mile, who was in control? The soldier. Why? Because you're doing it under duress. He's forcing you to do it. He's commanding you to do it. But on the second mile, who is now in control? You are in control. Why? Because you have willingly agreed to go a second mile. And I summarize this because the last illustration, even the last one that talks about the fact that give to those who ask and don't turn away from those who want to borrow. Now, essentially for me, it points to the fact that whenever we relate one to another with those who are trying to think evil or act evil towards us, Jesus calls us that place of not being victims. Never you take a victim perspective or mentality or position as you relate with others, with those, even those who think evil of you. Don't take a victim perspective. And you see, most times when we talk about self-defense, whether in big issues like someone coming to a community and wiping them out, and then, or fighting you, whatever it is, or someone who speaks ill of you, and then you want to defend yourself. Most times we do that from a victim perspective, from a victimhood position. But rather think about this, that when you try as much as possible, that in such scenarios, you are in control. You sort of exchange an evil treatment with a hand of fellowship. You sort of exchange an evil treatment with kindness. You exchange hurt with praise. You respond to even those who want to see you down there on the ladder with gracefulness. It places you in control. But you see, each time you take a posture of defense, you are playing the victim. I don't know what this could mean to you, but the point for me as I think about this whole issue around how best do we respond to those who think evil of us, we should respond to them as people who have a superior value. And I think each time someone proposes self-defense, I don't see it as a superior value. I don't see it as a superior value. So I want to challenge you that in every single circumstance that comes your way, especially in responding to those who think evil of you, think about a superior value like kindness, like love, like gentleness, like patience, like endurance. And I think if you take this and you lay it side by side with Galatians chapter 5, and interestingly, Matthew 5, Galatians 5, you take the fruit of the Spirit and you lay them side by side, you discover that the fruit of the Spirit is a superior value than that of self defense. I don't know what this means to you out there, but I'm challenging you that at each moment of your life, whether in big issues or in small issues, when people come at you, when evil people come at you, would you, even in those situations, respond with a higher value rather than take a victimhood mentality or a victimhood perspective or a victimhood position? Would you take a position of someone who is superior by offering a superior value? And I've mentioned a couple of them: Galatians 5, self control rather than self defense, patience rather than you want to quickly attack, love, gentleness, and all of that. And all of this for me, it's a point of simply saying, in relating with our neighbors, I think the best response is to respond with a higher and a superior value rather than to respond in an equal measure. Someone slaps you, you slap back. Someone punches you, you punch back. For me, it's like, so what makes you superior? You're simply a victim in that instance. When someone slaps you and you slap back, you're a victim. When someone punches you and you punch back, you're a victim. But Christ is saying, come on, don't be a victim. Never be a victim. Be in control. So you slap me and I give you the second cheek. Does not literally means that I give you a second cheek, but he's saying, think about what is the best superior response. And I think instances when we respond with superior argument, superior value, there's something it does even to our oppressors. It makes them wonder whether we're operating from what spirit are we operating from. And these are my thoughts as I think about this whole issue of who is my neighbor and how best do we respond to those who think evil of us. I'll leave you with these thoughts. And I don't know what these words mean to you. Probably you have someone out there that has hurt you, and you think the best thing to do is to hurt back. I am really not thinking that would be the best. Would you respond with a higher value than just punching back or hurting back or shouting back? Would you come back to your neighbor with a bigger argument? And I remember as I close the story of someone, uh, I don't know how true, but it's a story of someone who would always, uh, he has these animal dongs. He keeps animals, and each time they sort of poo, he takes the dung and he throws it into his neighbor's house. And one day it happened, he was sick, and the neighbor visited him with rose flowers. And the person or the guy or the woman, whoever it was fascinated. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so kind to me? And his neighbor responded by saying, you throw dunks, you throw poo and all of that into my yard and I planted rose flowers with them, and I'm giving you back rose flowers. So I'm just thinking about how very, very profound this story is, that someone tries to hurt you, but you respond with a higher value. I think it will go a long way to set you apart. So think about it. Uh, in a world where we're taught to defend ourselves, I don't think all the time it's necessary. I don't think all the time is necessary. Rather, let's think of a higher, superior uh, value to offer, even in instances when people think evil of us. I'm going to leave you with these thoughts, and I hope it blesses your life. Feel free to also drop your thoughts if you do not agree with something. Essentially, this is church, and it's an opportunity to hear your perspective on this issue. And I will read them, and where I need to respond, I'll definitely respond. And where I probably need to say, it's okay to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for watching. And for those of you that would watch later, please feel free to also drop your thoughts. God bless you and have a blessed rest of the week. Bye bye.